This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by TheHoosier.com. Hello, Hoosier Nation, and welcome back to another edition of the Hoosier.com post-game wrap-up, presented by the Hoosier and On3 Sports, joined by Staley. I'm Drew Rosenberg. And the Indiana Hoosiers have won 3 straight after a double overtime, almost triple overtime win over UCLA 98-97. Kyler, just starting off, there's a lot of good, a lot of bad. Indiana, first half wasn't pretty, but fought back to kind of get it within 6 going into the break. Then second half, played arguably their best second half of the year up until maybe the minute and a half left. I think it was a minute 50, a minute 30 left, and they were up 10. Couldn't close the game out, and that's just something, that can't happen moving forward. Like, Indiana has to be able to close that game out moving forward. The press from UCLA disrupted them, and it was a disaster. Lamar Wilkerson had a bad turnover. And the only reason that game goes into overtime is Indiana's collapse late. But then you get to overtime. Reed Bailey fouls out, who was having arguably his best game of the year. Josiah Miles fouls out. Connor Enright, your only healthy point guard, fouls out. And you battle, you survive, you grind out a road win. We say it all the time. Winning on the road in the Big Ten is not easy. This UCLA team is a good basketball team. This is a big win for Indiana moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to power through this because obviously my voice is not super great yet. But Indiana showed a lot of guts today, right? And I know you can kind of look at the negative right off the bat. Like, Indiana was up 10. They should have closed that game out in regulation, right? But it was just an utter collapse getting the ball in 3-4 straight times, somewhere around there, where they had to burn at least 2 timeouts, if I can remember correctly. And that obviously brought UCLA back into the game with that. But, you thought all hope was lost going into the first overtime. You thought UCLA had all the momentum, and Indiana just kept fighting. They kept fighting, and obviously Sam Alexis makes a big play down the stretch there. Things got really dicey, obviously, when going into overtime. You got Connor Enright, like you said, your only healthy point guard, right? And so that kind of pushes Tucker DeVries to be that point guard. That pushes Lamar Wilkerson to be that point guard, which is something you really don't want. You want those guys playing off the ball as much as possible. But Lamar Wilkerson obviously steps up. I can't count how many times he had wide open layups, or they weren't even wide open. They were just strong takes to the rim, and he would score. Him putting the ball on the floor, like, he's shown an improvement since late December or so, doing that a little bit more, and it paid off a ton there. Then you obviously read Bailey, who's played phenomenal. He finished with 24 points and was just arguably his best game of the entire season. And then you get Sam Alexis coming in. He makes big plays down the stretch. Trent Sisley obviously is thrown into the fire. He missed a couple free throws down the stretch, but obviously he made the 2 kind of big plays right there towards the end. And I forget who inbounded the ball on that last play. Was it DeVries?
I want to say it was Tucker DeVries.
If it was Tucker DeVries, sorry if it was someone else, but whoever to find Trent Sisley and that great cut that he had, and that strong take that he had to get to the free throw line, steal it with the win. Like you said, winning on the road in the Big Ten is really hard. Winning on the road in the Big Ten versus a really good team like UCLA is extremely hard. And this Indiana team, they're not the most talented team in the world. They're not the most talented team in the Big Ten by far. But they just fight, man, and they compete, and that's what you showed tonight. This is the biggest win of the season. I think it's bigger than the Purdue win. Indiana's back-to-back quad 1 wins right now. Mm-hmm. They're heading into February with a lot of momentum. They're heading into next week against USC with a lot of momentum. And Indiana basketball is just playing really, really good basketball right now.
Yeah, this is the first time I think you've looked at Indiana at this point of the season and seen all right, there's progression, there's growth. You've played Rutgers, that was a get right game, but then you beat a good Purdue team who was struggling, but then going on the road to UCLA, winning, the first game of the West Coast trip. And now it opens the door where, hey, if Indiana beats USC later next week, now you go 2-0 on the road, and Indiana, the schedule, it kind of opens up a little bit. You have Wisconsin and Oregon at home back-to-back. If Indiana takes care of those games, they kind of can build themselves a little bit of a buffer, where 2 weeks ago we were looking at this team. It was how are they going to find enough wins to get to the tournament? Now, 2 weeks later, it's a switch has been flipped. And I think a big part of that's Nick Dorn in the starting lineup. Since Nick Dorn, getting inserted into the lineup because of Tatum Connerway's injury, he's been unbelievable for Indiana. And this is someone, Hoosier fans rightfully have kind of been complaining about what's the roster going to look like next year. Nick Dorn is that guy for next year. He's the guy right now, too. He's shown he can score at a high level with the best of them. But having another year, too, it's a culture piece moving forward for Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we really do need to spend a little bit of time and talk about Nick Dorn because wow, what a game by him. And obviously he's been playing phenomenal, but 6 of 15 from three. He shot a lot of three balls, but he hit some really big ones down the stretch. He kind of disappeared a little bit in the overtime games, I think. But obviously you got guys like Lamar Wilkerson, who's been around the college game for a long time, steps up. Trent Sisley makes some big plays down the stretch. I thought Tucker DeVries has some good leadership qualities, going down in that overtime. With Indiana, up against the ropes right there. But Nick Dorn, man, his level of play right now is superstar level, right? And he's kind of showing that he's one of the best transfer portal pickups in the entire country. And it has fallen under the radar a little bit because Indiana's been a very, average team. They haven't been, at the national level as these top teams, so far this season and everything. So it's kind of fallen under the radar, but you hate to kind of say it like this, but the injury to Talkin Conway may have kind of helped Indiana in a way to find something, right? Because obviously Talkin Conway is still battling that ankle injury and you want him back, right? You need him back because you can't have Connor Enright, and he almost did it again tonight. You can't have him playing 40 minutes a game, right? If you can find something to where like Connor Enright and Talkin Conway can kind of, spell each other, you can kind of split up those minutes a little bit, kind of like how Sam Alexis and Reed Bailey do it. If you can find a way to do that and everything, Indiana, finally, you have depth again, right? And Indiana, obviously, you kind of showed their lack of depth, in this game with three guys fouling out. Josiah Miles, who poor guy, he was out there, I feel like just to foul people, right? And Reed Bailey, Reed Bailey goes down. Sam Alexis has got to step up. And then obviously, Connor Enright goes down and stuff. They were really, at the ropes there. And I didn't really know where they were going to turn if one of the other guys fouled out because you were getting really deep into the bench at that point. So, Nick Dorn, man, he is playing like, I don't want to say he's the best player on this team right now. He's the hottest player on this team right now, but he's stepping out right when Indiana needs to. And I think Indiana is going to continue to ride the momentum that he's given them.
Yeah, I want to, touch on Talkin Conway, being out. Indiana missed him down the stretch of this game, especially, in that second half collapse down the stretch, not being able to break the press. I mean, that is where it was very obvious, Talkin Conway is missing from this team because he's been the guy all year. When there's a press, get him the ball and he'll just dribble through it. And because, his speed is his handle, it's the best on the team by far. And, as good as Connor Enright is as a player, he's a great passer. He just doesn't have the same ability to, beat guys off the dribble like Talkin Conway. And that was clearly missed down the stretch. So I think, we mentioned Nick Dorn is, he's got to stay in the starting lineup and splitting Conway and Enright because those are really the only two true ball handlers. Like Tucker DeVries stepped up in overtime, but you don't want Tucker DeVries as a primary ball handler, for big spurts this year. It's, he's not at his best when he's, playing point guard. And, he didn't shoot the ball well today. It was 2 for 8 from the field, but, all around, did a lot of good stuff for Indiana. 10 rebounds, 7 assists. But Indiana is at its best when Talkin Conway is on the floor and healthy. As much as this stretch has been great without him, I think moving forward, it's going to be a Talkin Conway starting alongside Nick Dorn, Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, and then Sam Alexis or Reed Bailey, whoever is, I guess, the hot hand at that point, because, I could see a world where Darren DeVries goes back to Reed Bailey, maybe the way he's been playing.
Drew, I kind of want to, respectfully disagree a little bit because I don't think when Talkin Conway does come back, I think Connor Enright will stay in that starting role. I also don't think that Coach DeVries will switch anything up when it comes to the big guys. I think it's actually worked out extremely well with Sam Alexis starting and Reed Bailey having to kind of sit for a few minutes, see how the game's adjusting, and then he can go in and make his play. But we talk about Nick Dorn. I think we also got to, give Reed Bailey his props, right? For today's game. I think it was his best game overall. Maybe not his best game statistically. I don't know what his highest scoring game so far this season was, but 24 points, 12 of 13 from the free throw line. I thought that was the biggest part of the whole entire thing because, when Indiana was struggling to get the ball in bounds, and they finally would get it to, Reed Bailey. That probably wasn't the guy that they really wanted the ball to go to. You wanted it to go to Tucker DeVries, Connor Enright, Lamar Wilkerson, but Reed Bailey ended up being the guy a lot of times down the stretch, and he had some clutch free throws for them. He also battled on the boards. I mean, 6 rebounds. He had 5 assists as well.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
I mean, it proves like, and we touched on it, but obviously it got kind of, pushed to the side a little bit just with his struggles. But Reed Bailey is a really good passing big, and that was one of the reasons why Coach DeVries went out and got him, is because of his, court vision from a big guy standpoint at the top of the key, and for him to find slashers and things like that. He's really good at that. And he's also good on the slips as well. How many slips did he have tonight where he had wide open layups, wide open dunks? And I thought Tucker DeVries did a good job of feeding him the ball and finding him when he was going downhill. So Reed Bailey, I think, is stepping up. I joked in our forum boards, I think we all owe Reed Bailey an apology and stuff. And I'll be the first one to apologize to Reed Bailey because he's playing really good. And I'll also give Coach DeVries credit, too, because I think that they figured out a way to play Reed Bailey to his strengths a little bit versus at the beginning of the season. I felt like they were kind of playing him not really out of position, but just not where he's comfortable at. But Coach DeVries is doing a really good job with Reed Bailey. Sam Alexis is feeding off of that. He stepped up like a senior should, with Reed going down. You even saw a little bit, when Indiana had to really go deep into their bench, you saw both those guys play together. So that's a possibility because UCLA is a very long team. I mean, Xavier Booker might be the longest human being in the world. So, but no, I think overall it was just it's just a gutsy win, right? And now you've got 2 quad 1 wins. You beat USC, which is another quad 1 opportunity. Indiana is really cooking, and Indiana is definitely on the right side of the bubble in that situation. As long as they don't drop, I think I looked at their schedule, obviously, as long as they don't drop like Oregon at home, I think that's really the last quote unquote bad loss that Indiana could eventually have. I think it's a quad 3 game at home, but Indiana in a way just kind of controls their own destiny in a lot of ways. And if Indiana can have a really good, strong, final regular season month going into the Big Ten play and not have to worry about going on a deep run in Big Ten play, I think that's a win. And I think Indiana's clicking right at the right time. They found something in Nick Dorn. They found something in the lineups that they're running. Tucker DeVries is playing within himself right now. He's playing like a senior leader. The seniors are stepping up. And Nick Dorn's playing like a superstar right now. And Trent Sicily, like we mentioned earlier, he's ready when his name is called. Same with Josiah Miles, even though he struggled. Those guys are everyone's kind of buying in right now. And I think Indiana's arguably the hottest team right now in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's put themselves in a good position. I was looking at the schedule, 15-7 right now with 9 games left, 5 home games of the 9. If you just take care of business on the home floor, was at 20-11, and that would, with a win over Purdue, road win at UCLA, and that would also, include a win over Michigan State at home. I think that more than likely, gets you on the right side of the bubble, gets you into the tournament. And then that doesn't include if you steal one at USC, maybe steal one at Illinois, Purdue, or beat Ohio State in the final game of the season on the road. Like, Indiana has opportunities moving forward. We've talked about tournament chances a ton on these post-game wrap-ups, and every time it's like Indiana, it felt, doom and gloom a week ago, Kyler. It felt like, this team had no chance of making the tournament. It felt like this is a bad basketball team. In the roster, I mean, we've been very open about it. It's a flawed roster. You see that Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis is the only bigs. You're stretched thin. Tatum Connerway and Connor Enright is like the only 2 real point guards. So it's, Darren DeVries has had his work cut out for him, and yeah, it's his roster. He built it, but again, it's, first-year coach, brand new roster, like entirely built through the transfer portal, other than Trent Sicily, really. So I'm really curious to see how Indiana, is able to compete when Darren DeVries, full offseason, full roster, and isn't looking to, use the entire NIL budget for 13 spots, rather trying to fill out, 3, 4, 5 spots on the roster moving forward. And, that's what I'm excited about when I look at this team, where the program's headed the direction. I see the vision. And with some other coaches, I didn't necessarily see the vision. I don't know if you would agree with that. Like, there was, times it looked great, but like, you see the play style. It's a play style that like guys want to play for, when guys commit to the program. Von Carvalho, Trevor Manhurts, they've all said the same thing. I see the play style. It fits me and what I want to do. And that wasn't something we kind of, had become accustomed to the opposite of like guys like Braylon Mullins going elsewhere because of the play style.
Yeah.
Liam McNeely, the same thing. So it's nice to, it's a positive play style. The team plays hard, and it's only going to get better for this program kind of moving forward.
Yeah, and this obviously I'll just kind of wrap up, my thoughts on it. I mean, Coach DeVries, yeah, you mentioned it. The vision's there, right? The talent on this roster, not necessarily. He's doing a lot with a little in a way. He's got guys that are going to compete, but there's going to be a lot of times, and I would even argue, UCLA game tonight, Indiana was probably not the most talented team on the floor. They just worked the hardest, and they found ways to win, and they dug in and got a big win. So Coach DeVries is going to get this thing, righted. I think he's on the right track, regardless of what happens, in this final month of the season, whether they make the tournament or not. But I think Coach DeVries has got a clear vision. I think he's got the backing from a lot of people. He's got a great coaching staff, a phenomenal coaching staff that's got connections at different parts of the world, really. So just overall, just a really good win for Indiana. A big time win, the biggest one that Coach DeVries has had. He thought that Purdue one was going to be the biggest one. I would say this one's easily the biggest one just because it's a road game. It's not a hostile environment by any means. There was not a ton of fans there tonight, but Indiana played a really good game tonight, even though things got a little dicey, for them to almost blow it a little bit there. But just a tough win, tough, gutsy win. And I think this is the type of win that's going to get the fan base to finally hop on board and support them fully for the remaining month and see if they can make a run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, one last thing before we wrap. I think that Purdue win, I think it took a little bit of the, pressure, like the weight off DeVries and these guys' shoulders, because it was like, hey, any Indiana fan knows, like, you're in Bloomington for longer than an hour. You quickly realize how important those games are, and beating Purdue, it's everything. Even when the team's bad, even like Mike Woodson, his 4 years, he was still 500 against Purdue, which was, and it kind of set a standard of like, hey, even if, Indiana basketball's not its best, they're still going to compete with Purdue. And Darren DeVries showing that under me, it had been a rough stretch, before that Rutgers game. Let's call it how it is. It was a 4-game losing streak, bad losses. And then you beat Purdue, and it's like, all right, even still, Indiana's still able to beat Purdue on their home floors, is what you wanted to see from DeVries. And then I think it kind of freed him up a little bit, because now for the last, 2-3 weeks, it had been all negative or negativity surrounding the program. And now it was like some positivity coming into this game, to this West Coast trip. And it wasn't the prettiest one, but, Indiana taking care of business, and now if they're able to take care of, if you take both, UCLA and then you go and beat USC later this week, Indiana's in a really good spot moving forward.
Yeah, there's not a team in the Big Ten that's playing with as much confidence right now as what Indiana is. Maybe Michigan. Obviously, they're playing at an elite level, but Indiana's playing with a ton of confidence, and I think you made a great point. I think this has opened up things for them. They got a road win against Rutgers. I mean, that is what it is, but that's a confidence building win. You go in and beat Purdue, your confidence is at an all time high. Then you just beat a team like UCLA on the road in double overtime, and arguably the best college basketball game of the year. I think Indiana is in the driver's seat right now when it comes to momentum.
Yeah, Indiana's in a great place, especially like to get into March, and and that's where you want to be, and just keep getting better. If Indiana's better at the end of the January, or significantly better at the end of January than they were at the end of December. And if you're better in the end of February than you were at the end of January, you're in a really good spot, the way this team's playing right now. But that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Hoosier.com postgame wrap-up. For all things IU athletics, make sure to follow the Hoosier on 3 on Twitter and subscribe to the Hoosier for premium content, including exclusive interviews, scouting reports, and message board access. We got a new recruiting analyst, Shane Pickering, joining the team. He is going to have you covered, guys, for IU football recruiting. He's been doing this for a while out of Tennessee. One of the first camps he went to, who he was covering, Kyler? That boy Charlie B from Nashville, Tennessee. So guys, make sure to follow him too if you haven't done so already. I think I'm going to pull up his Twitter right now so I can have it. Shane P_media. So guys, he's going to have you covered for all the inside IU recruiting. I think he was the first one to break the news about the offensive lineman that
I think that's in-state offensive lineman. I can't think of his name right now, but yeah, the Hoosier.com broke that, and that was all thanks to Shane.
Jeremiah Jones, yeah, he broke that first. So guys, go give him a follow, and you would have saw it first on the message boards too if you subscribe. So do that, guys. It means a lot to us. and hit subscribe, like this video on YouTube, guys. That also, it takes 1 second. It's free and it helps us a ton so we can keep doing these. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Hoosier.com post-game wrap-up. We'll be back.